The dreaded front row. Okay, hey guys, like my mom said, I'm Phil Blue, and I guess the reason why I'm here to talk to you today is just kind of share my story, because I kind of did everything that you'd want. I kind of did everything you'd want like your kid to do in college, you know, like played varsity football, like got straight A's, went abroad, did all that. But I used support outside of what I had as a friendship group. And in doing so, I think I got a lot more out of college than just kind of like the resume in college. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. Because there were some really lonely times and some times that are, I think, really hard in college that a lot of people don't reach out for help. And I think that's something that's really important. And I think that's what the whole point of this is reaching out for support and getting support. And in my case, the support I got was from a man named Bob Wright. And he is a psychologist up at the Wright Leadership Institute in Chicago. And he was a man who I went to before college. And he held a vision for me. It's how he called it. He holds a vision for me. And essentially what that means is he has a picture of like my best self. And he has goals that he wants for me, but he knows that they're goals that I want as well. And he pushes me towards them. And he pushes me towards my goals and outside my comfort zone. And so his first way of doing that was actually getting me into a college that I wouldn't have gone to. I ended up going to a small liberal arts school in a corn town in Minnesota. It's like 1,900 kids. I was super scared about that because I wanted to go to like a big party school and stuff fun. And like play football and do that. But he wanted me to go to a small liberal arts school, get humbled by kids who were smarter than me and more athletic than me and more golden boy than me. And so I was like, okay, great, I'll do that. So I went to this school, this small liberal arts school up in Minnesota. And Bob's vision was like, okay, well now you're there, let's have you see the world. So I was like, okay, how can I see the world? And so my first trip abroad, I went to Costa Rica with like a few of my best friends. And we went for like 2 weeks. Wasn't that scary, just went around, bungee jumped, did little backpacking excursions and stuff like that. But like overall risk scale, like not really scary. But I came back and I was like, oh yeah, Bob, like I really like nailed it. I went for it. Really scary, did great my first trimester. And Bob was like, okay, so you went on a vacation, that's nice. But I want you to do something a little scarier than that. So I was like, okay, I'll do something a little scarier. So that summer, I signed up to go abroad to Spain. So I was in Chicago, then I went to Spain, and I signed up for an abroad program in Toledo. And I was like in the heart of Spain, and I was in like a little castle town. And I was working in a hospital, and I thought I was doing it great. And I went for 6 weeks, and was working on my Spanish and stuff like that. But Bob's like, first thing he said to me before I left was like, don't speak English and don't hang out with the Americans. And I think the only people I hung out with the whole time were Americans. I don't think we spoke a word of Spanish the whole time. So it wasn't like huge risk for me. But I was in Toledo and I thought I was being sweet and like world traveler and stuff like that. And I went to Paris and saw the world, but I didn't really see anything. So I come back and I was like, oh hey Bob, like listen, like I was in Toledo, I worked at a hospital, it was great, big risks, all that. And he was like, okay, I like that, I respect that, but that's not really what I want you to get out of your broad experience. You know, like I want you to do something a little bit more. And at this point, I was doing well in football, doing great in classes, like stuff was going well, but I was still scared to actually go abroad. So he's like, well, why don't you go back to Spain again? And I was like, serious, like Costa Rica, Spain, like Spain again. But he's like, yeah, just go back. Why don't you go back and check it out? So I went back to Spain. I went to Salamanca, holler at, someone went to Salamanca on the TV screen.
Kendall did.
Yeah, Kendall, nice.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, so I went to Salamanca. I love Salamanca. It's a great place. I went for a few months. And it was in Salamanca, it was only through Toledo that I could really enjoy Salamanca. Toledo was a time where I was really scared. I was unwilling to break out of my comfort zone. And I didn't really get a lot out of it. But it was still really important for me in my growth process because had I not gone to Toledo and been scared and been locked down and had a bad abroad experience, I wouldn't have known what I really wanted out of Salamanca. And I went to Salamanca and I met some great kids and I enrolled in the university there instead of in a language school. And so I was speaking a lot of Spanish and I was with kids who were pushing me socially to go out, go meet people, go to parties, stuff like that. Things that were scary to me. And we spoke a lot of Spanish. And so I think in Salamanca, what was really valuable to me about Salamanca was that I met more knowledgeable others. My dad, like Vygotsky talks about it, but the idea is that I met people who were living lives that I would have liked to have lived. And the reason why they're people I looked up to was because they had authorship over their broad experience. So like they had a vision for what they wanted out of their broad experience and were getting it. And I was there just kind of following them around and going out and partying with all my friends, and I didn't really have much direction. But I had a great time in Salamanca, and it was great for my Spanish. So then I went back to the States, and I was like, so Bob, like I was there for a few months, learned a bunch of Spanish, like this is sweet, stuff's going really well. And I had a girlfriend at the time, so I thought things were going like really well, and like sailingly. And Bob was like, okay, well, we'll see how you turn out, see what's going on. But it was at this point that things started to get rough in college. This was my junior year, second semester, and I developed quite a drinking problem. I was drinking a lot, and I was getting kind of depressed about it, and then I was drinking more to get out of that. So it was kind of like this vicious cycle of like drinking, then being sad, then drinking to get out of it. And that's kind of what happens. That happens to a lot of kids in college, and no one really wants to talk about it, but it's a very real thing. And I want to make it clear that I'm not against drinking in any way or going to parties or whatever, but for me at this time, it was hard on me. But I was too close to it to really see that there was a problem. And so I called Bob, and I mean at this point I'm struggling. I'm like depressed, like suicidal ideations, like just stuff's not going well, broke up with my girlfriend, things were tough. And Bob's listening to me on the phone, and he's like, yeah, like this is tough, like I get it, but like, what's going on? And I started talking about some of the issues I was having and what I was doing at night with my friends and stuff like that. And Bob was like, well, it kind of sounds like you have a drinking problem. And I was like, I don't want to attribute that, like my problems to like an outside source. You know, like I don't want it to be some outside chemical like affecting me and stuff like that. And he's like, well, why don't you give it a shot? Why don't you try to stop drinking? And to stop drinking in college for me at this point was basically like killing me. I was like, oh my god, like, what's the point? Like no parties, no nothing. Like why should I even like try anymore? But I was so sad and upset at this point in my life that I was willing to give it a shot. And it was at this point that I kind of springboarded into what I want to say, like my real college experience, like into my senior year where I actually had a good college experience and not just like the party, football, academic lifestyle. But I actually started to have a real meaningful experience. And it was at this point, and I think I almost